We've all benefited from modern advances in medicine and know that when a doctor prescribes a drug, that drug will have undergone extensive clinical trials. But how about the people on those trials? How are they looked after during what is clearly a risky process? The Medical Research Network provides nursing care for some of the most complex trials, which may involve very young patients, often in their own homes, and very often with extremely challenging and rare diseases. We went to find out how some of the most cutting-edge clinical research is being made possible.
So the Medical Research Network is a British small business. We operate in a global pharmaceutical sector, and to do that we have offices in Chicago and Madrid as well as in the UK. Working in Europe puts us in a great place for a large number of our customers around the world, many of whom are American or from other parts of the globe. As they want to have businesses that are used to dealing with the multinational environment that we find in Europe, and companies that are able to deal with the different medical environments that exist in all the different countries.
We focus on helping patients take part in clinical trials. We know that there's something like 6% of patients are offered the opportunity to take part in clinical trials. It's a really tiny number, and they don't take part because their doctors don't know about the clinical studies, but also if they do, it's really hard if they're going to have to go backwards and forwards to hospital every week, which is a frequent event when you're taking part in the trial. And so we decided to develop our model of sending nurses to see the patients in the home instead. They do all those clinical trial procedures and processes, but instead of the patient having to be seen in the hospital, wherever possible, they can be seen in the home, or indeed even on holiday or in school or at work or wherever.
When we were founded, we were trying to introduce the concept of seeing patients in their own homes whilst on clinical trials. Traditionally, patients are always seen at hospital sites. They're seen by the physician that's running that trial. So what we were trying to offer the pharma industry was something completely different, and as an industry that's very hard to change, we were met with a lot of hesitation. A lot of customers saying, you know, that's a great idea. When you've done it a few more times, come back and talk us through how it works. So it really was trying to break new ground. A lot of the work we've done, talking to customers, educating customers, the marketing efforts, the sales efforts have been really around changing and carving out the niche that we offer in the marketplace today.
It's been the most fantastic experience. All 12 years have been a kind of mixture of exhilaration and terror as we've developed the services and developed the processes over the years, and it's been everything that I could possibly have expected it to be and a whole lot more.
You know, being able to do the visits in the patient's home to actually make the patients want to participate and to get them in quicker was quite a refreshing, concept that felt like actually this is doing something really proactive to change the way that we're trying to do things.
Home trial support run by the Medical Research Network has been one of the biggest innovations in the patient-centric movement in recent times, and in fact is probably the single biggest change in the core model of running clinical trials in the last 30 years. As we are able to introduce services which allow patients to be treated in the community in a clinical trial program, we are more likely to attract patients into the trial, and we're more likely to retain them. And that means we get drugs to the market and ultimately to the patients quicker and more efficiently as a consequence.
Big Pharma are now catching up with that and are realising that if they want to recruit patients and hold on to them, they have to make it much more easy for the patient. And of course it's obvious things like if a drug ultimately is going to be administered in the home, then it should be trialled in the home as well. The clinical trials should be done in the home environment wherever it's safe.
Clinical research is it's an area where innovation has always taken place, but it's relatively slow. and that's true of medicine generally. Medical uptake of new technology can be quite slow. So I started in the business 30 years ago, and I've been innovating in the environment ever since. And if you look back that far, there's a lot of things have changed in the pharmaceutical industry and the way it runs clinical trials. They are fundamentally focused around speeding up the clinical trial world so that we get drugs to market faster, and also to make it more efficient and potentially more cost effective. That process is continuing, and over the next few years in particular, we expect to see the introduction of more virtual medicine technology with telemedicine and other types of data transfer from patients into the trial environment. So we'll have wearable technology, we'll have pills that people can swallow that have biometric sensors within them. These things are all available now on the market, being used, and the clinical trial world is going to have to adapt to absorbing that type of data into the clinical research that we do. And ultimately, I believe that the traditional site-based model of clinical research, where patients visit their physicians mostly in the hospital, will all change, and we'll be running many more of our clinical research programs in the community with technology supporting the data collection. So being an SME in the UK is quite challenging because we don't get much access to the financial services and support related to innovation, being a service business. And in fact, SMEs in general still find it very difficult to access the right type of funding in the UK. SME sector in the UK is a very critical part of the UK's economy. We employ more people and we provide more tax to the government than any other component of the sector. Our ability to do that is severely limited by our ability to borrow. One of the things the government learned really clearly, I believe, after the liquidity crisis in 2008 and the recession that came afterwards, was that small business funding has to be maintained in the country in order to keep the small business part of the economy alive. It's almost like an infrastructural element of society. It's a bit like the NHS has to be there to look after your health, or the police service has to be there to look after your safety and security. The SME sector has to be there to provide a huge amount of jobs and revenue to the taxman for the country. And during recessions, that can be put back by years. So it's important that the UK government has a viable and appropriate way of funding small businesses consistently, which is different from the venture capital type of investment that you get in today's regular environment.